What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Chuds BBQ. My name is Bradley Robinson, and today I'm going to show you how I made this. Beautiful, delicious, smoky, tender, gigantic, direct heat, untrimmed, amazing, full rack of spare ribs. Coming up. These are some ribs. Pat them dry. And what I got here is a big old rack of spare ribs, the full spare, meaning we got the chine bone up top, all the rib tips, the skirt meat on back, and all in all, just a gigantic rack of ribs. And truth be told, this is kind of an impromptu video I wasn't really planning on making, but yesterday I was walking through H-E-B, perusing the meat section, as one does, and I looked and I saw these and I was like, damn, that is a big rack of ribs. Which then got me thinking, in the last 15 or so years of cooking barbecue, I don't think I've ever cooked a full rack of spare ribs. I mean, obviously I've cooked thousands of racks of spare ribs, but they typically get trimmed up, like I was just saying, starting by taking this chine bone off the back, cleaning up this skirty flat meat, squaring up this end to get rid of all these tiny baby ribs, and then taking down the rib tips a little bit to give it some good shape. Which makes a lot of sense if you're coming from a restaurant perspective, which is my background, because we're trying to maximize our yield and how many ribs we can put on a barbecue tray. And these tiny little baby ribs are going to probably burn up, so we can't really use them for much once they're cooked. Same with the chine bone, that's got to come off because we can't cut through it. The skirt meat on the back can sometimes get rub underneath it, and it's just extra meat that might burn up as well. And all this extra meat coming off of this rack is going to make a lot more money in a sausage as opposed to burnt or, less desirable rib cuts once it's on the cutting board. But I'm not in a restaurant anymore, and for most backyard pitmasters, they're probably not making their own sausage, so they're likely throwing all these scraps away, which got me thinking, how many people out there are just cooking this thing whole and simply sacrificing presentation for, less desirable cooked meat? So long story short, I'm going to cook this entire rack of spare ribs as is and really see how that skirt meat comes out, what the baby ribs look like, and if all the trimming over the years was really necessary, which is going to be really difficult because every part in me wants to flatten this out, remove some of this extra fat, square up this thin little end over here, and also this big muscle on top. I always take that off, but I shall resist. Come on, can I take that off? Can I just take, maybe it'll rip off. All right, one single trim. There we go. All right, now I feel better. So let's get this thing seasoned up. And for rub today, I'm going down with some Chuds BBQ Bold. I've been loving this rub lately. It goes great on absolutely everything. Nice savory flavor profile, good pepper content. It should be perfect on a rack of ribs. Do I season under the skirt meat? I don't know. Membrane staying on per usual. The interesting thing is with all these thin parts, I gotta go a little bit lighter over here and a little bit heavier over here, where usually it's a little bit more uniform. Throw a little rub under there. Beautiful, looking very nice. Flip this over, do the top side as well. Oh geez, just a nice healthy dusting. And that's looking pretty much perfect to me. Let's go ahead and fire up the pit. And on the pit we go, and gotta tell you, this is the heaviest rack of ribs I've ever picked up. Takes up the whole pit. Absolutely gigantic. Usually I can fit 4 racks going vertically, but not this size. But I got the old Chud box here fired up. We're aiming for a temp of about 275, 300 degrees. Got a bunch of lump charcoal in there. We're gonna do a pretty classic direct heat barbecue cook. And also I might throw a couple of chunks of post oak in there because I'm feeling a little bit frisky. Nice combination of that direct heat flavor plus that wood smoke. And we're gonna cook it like any other rack of ribs. We're about an hour in on this cook. Temps are holding steady, which is great. Super easy cook. Color is looking great. Bark is adhered nicely. Let's see what the underside looks like. Oh yeah, looking real nice. Beautiful color on that. That skirt meat is definitely getting pretty hammered, so we'll have to keep an eye on that. But lovely color. Everything's looking nice and crispy. Got a nice mahogany to it. So now we're gonna get some color on the top side, the meat side. Let it go for probably another hour. This video is brought to you by Tecovas. In every pair of Tecovas boots, you can expect a premium quality and a timeless Western style. The boots are made from premium cowhide and other exotic leathers. And the best part is, they're super comfortable from day one because Tecovas is known for their broken-in leathers. So you never have to worry about breaking in a stiff or uncomfortable pair of boots. And I've been rocking these Tecovas for well over a year at this point, and I gotta say, I absolutely love them. Like I mentioned, they're super comfortable, they look great, and they're perfect for so many different occasions, whether I'm going out on a nice dinner date or some sort of fancy event. They're also great for leaning into that Western vibe, whether I'm going to a barbecue festival or a country music festival or something like that. And also, they're boots, meaning they're super functional. So if I ever find myself out on a ranch or going for a hunt or something like that, this is definitely the footwear that I'm gonna be grabbing. My boot of choice is the Dean, the lower profile one, but they have so many different styles and options to choose from. And if you have a Tecovas store in your area, I highly recommend checking it out. It's a super fun environment. Everyone is really friendly and knowledgeable, and they offer a lot more than boots. They've got cowboy hats and shirts and denim pants and all sorts of great stuff. And they also offer free leather stamping and branding options if you want to customize your boot. meat. So if you're looking to upgrade your footwear, click the link in the description box of this video or scan the QR code on screen now to check out Tecovas and pick up your new favorite pair of boots today. Again, link down below or scan the QR code on screen now to check out Tecovas for your new favorite pair of boots. Thank you, Tecovas. And while that side cooks away, let's go ahead and knock out a quick mop sauce. Starting with a healthy knob of butter, followed by half an onion. And once those have cooked down and softened up a little bit, and we go with 1 whole lemon, followed by some red chili flakes, some paprika, a couple dashes of some Worcestershire sauce, a decent amount of some hot sauce, and some apple cider vinegar. You know what, let's go in with a little mustard as well. Oh, been there, buddy. And bring that up to a simmer. And once up to a simmer, we'll go in with 2 more things, including a little brown sugar, as well as about half a beer. Oops. Could go in with a full beer, but gotta save some for Papa. Now I'm gonna let this cook for a couple minutes just to make sure we get all the flavor out of those onions and that lemon, and our super simple mop sauce is done. Over here at the Chud box, it's been about 45 minutes since we last looked at these, and they're still looking absolutely incredible. Loving the color on there. But before we flip these over to see how the top's looking, let's mop the back a little bit. Just up and down. And again, I really don't have a recipe for a mop sauce. You're just looking for something super acidic and bright. It's got some good flavor to it, some good heat to it, but honestly, it should probably taste pretty terrible on its own because it's mostly a vinegar sauce, but it'll pair really nicely with all of this fatty meat. Let that cook on for another 15, and then we'll flip it over and see how the top side is looking. Here we are right at the 2-hour mark, looking very good. Gonna give this backside one more mop. And let's see what the top is looking like. Ooh yeah, very nice. Hard to see with all the steam though, but all that flavorful steam is gonna help perfume the meat. But a nice crust on there, some really nice deep red color, and these bones are starting to pull back, and it's looking very tasty. So now I'll mop the top. Again, this is for adding flavor, adding some nice steam and moisture to the cooking environment, as well as this liquid will help soften any edges, which especially for this cook is probably gonna come in really handy because I didn't round anything off. Beautiful. 3 hours on the dot, and these ribs are looking beautiful. I've come through and mopped them a few times, flipped them over, gave another mop to the back, but they are looking very nice. Nice red color, got some good crust on there. And they're feeling nice and tender, good bone pullback, so I'm gonna wrap these up. Woo, nothing like a big old slab of barbecue ribs, am I right, folks? Go down with one final mop. Or you could go down with any other sauce at this point. Flip it over, mop the backside, and wrap them up. Had to throw another piece of foil on top. And now I'm gonna put these back on the pit for maybe another 20, 30, just to let them steam out and get super tender in there. And once they're probing nice and tender, which won't be long, I'm gonna pull them off. So I'll let these chill on the pit fully wrapped up for maybe about 45 minutes, just because that pit was on its way down and I didn't feel like bumping up the pit, just to let these steam. So after that, I pulled them off, let them rest fully wrapped in the foil for, I don't know, 45 minutes, an hour or so, until they came down to eating temperature, which is right around 150 degrees. And I gotta say, these are looking pretty good. Nice and juicy, feeling tender. And of course, we can always do a little bit of a, oops, oh no, what have I done? But liking the color, they're looking nice and juicy. Got a nice red mahogany vibe to them, looking a little bit dark. Got some good char from the old Chud box. And all in all, other than these kind of scraggly ends and this big muscle up top is feeling a little bit hard, but looks a lot better than I thought it would. Backside got blasted a little bit, that membrane split open, but you know, having the skirt on here, that feels nice and tender, so that's good. So I think all we gotta do now is slice them up. So first thing we absolutely have to do is take off this big breastbone over here because it's a solid bone going this direction. So if we try to cut a rib this way, it's simply not going to work. And if we look, just like on a raw rack, you can see it right there. So I'm just going to kind of aim right in this general direction between the bone and the cartilage, and hopefully we get right on through. Easy. Oh yeah, looking nice and juicy too. But this top muscle definitely is feeling pretty dry. And the one I usually remove, so just by the feel of it, I think that might be worth taking off. But you know, that's a fun little snack right there. And now we've really got some decisions to make, because at this point we could just slice it up like a normal spare rib and get some big old long ribs, or we could kind of come on this natural line right here and go this way, and then you get rib tips and then St. Louis cut ribs. Decisions. I think I'm gonna go for gigantic ribs because I can always cut the rib tips off later. So I'm gonna flip this over and get this sliced up. It's like cutting a cake. That is a unique way to slice ribs. I mean, just look at the curvature of these things. It's straight to here, and then it's curved to here, and then it kind of curves back this way over on this direction. So all these little baby ribs that I usually take off anyway kind of end up looking triangular and weird, and I also shredded the top off. Interesting. So back in its original formation here, we've got this breastbone on top, which again is some fun gnawing, but definitely not the best rib on the rack. Kind of hard, kind of dried out, but looking really juicy underneath there. Then you got this rib on the very end, which is usually my favorite because it's got this meat right here. It's like pure pork belly, really fatty. But again, it's got this chunk of meat on there, and just feeling it, it feels kind of tough. And then from here to about here looks pretty perfect. I mean, that is just a gigantic, beautiful rib, looking nice and juicy. Get a nice center cut bad boy. That is looking like a bacon rib almost, or a beef rib or something, because that is just so thick, so gigantic. And we got a little smoke ring on there too. Very nice. If we keep going, they just get even longer. That's like the biggest rib I've ever seen. That's what that meat on the bottom looks like. Interested to see how that turns out. But again, looking a little dry up on this end, but you can really see the different ribs, you know, right around here is where you'd slice it for the St. Louis cut. Then you kind of got your rib tips with all the cartilage bits, and then it just kind of keeps going. The thin parts that I usually trim off, which is in fact feeling kind of dry. And then typically I'd probably zip these 3 off, maybe these 2, and probably for good reason, because they're not the best looking ribs. Kind of thin, falling apart. A lot of bone, a lot of cartilage. So I think it's time to taste one. I think for starters, let's go for this breastbone, this chine bone on the end here, because I've never actually eaten this piece before. Honestly, it tastes really good, but kind of tough, kind of dry, as we suspected. You know, everything was probing around 200 degrees. We got that clean bite. Like, it's a technically good cook, but just the meat itself is not very marbled. Ooh, little fatty part on the end, though. I mean, that one was good. And I'm sure you know that muscle I was talking about this whole time that's on top of the end of the rib. I usually take that off because it's a piece of muscle, piece of fat, piece of muscle, so I worried it would slide off, and it didn't slide off, so I guess I can stop saying that now, but at the same time, not the best piece of meat to leave on your ribs because it's just a different texture than everything else. That being said, that muscle varies in size from rack to rack, and it was huge on this one, so if you've got a little baby one, you could probably get away with leaving it on. I've just been eyeing this one all day because this one is absolutely beautiful. Gigantic, thick rib, nice smoke ring. Let's go for it. Now that's a good rib right there. Direct heat flavor for days. The acidity is coming through, but not too acidic. Just balances out that fatty pork. Perfectly seasoned, I might add. And it's got a little oak smoke on there too. Very nice. Probably my favorite kind of rib ever. If I ever open a restaurant or do a pop-up or anything, it's direct heat ribs all the way. I mean, if you've seen any of my travel content when I do pop-ups abroad and stuff or classes, always bring in the direct heat ribs because they're superior to any other style. Nice clean bone, nice and juicy. And like I was saying earlier, we can make rib tips if we want. Just cut off the cartilage part, and there you go. A nice Chicago favorite treat right there. And quite a big one at that. This is some really good gnawing. Joe Yen's favorite part of the rib. It's just so juicy and fatty. This is a good rack of ribs. My God. Moving down the rack, we got this weird triangle rib, which is kind of cool looking. But if you're just trying to cook a full rack of ribs and feed a bunch of people, like, I would not be mad about getting this rib, but let's see how this one came out. Still perfectly cooked, bite through, not falling off the bone, but nice and tender, very juicy, and all around incredibly flavorful. One more thing we got to test out is that little nubbins under there, the skirt that I always trim off of ribs, that everyone always trims off of ribs. Again, like that other muscle, it varies from rack to rack. This one was really tiny, so it doesn't look like much of a big deal, but sometimes they're huge and they flap all the way over the membrane and stuff. So in that case, I might trim it back. But this one, I've got ribs at restaurants that have that little guy on there, and let's see how it is. Ooh, that's really nice, actually. It's extra flavorful, I think, just because it was getting a lot of the heat because it was just the first thing on the grate, because that was kind of the high point of the bottom. So it got a little extra charred up, a little extra char flavor, but clearly still tender and pretty well marbled. Not bad. Not bad. So if we're looking at this big long rib, we already talked about the rib tips. We already talked about where to cut it for St. Louis. But even if I was doing a rack of like Texas style spares, I would always take this nubbin down a little bit. So let's see if that dried out, because that's kind of the thin part that we always round off, going from point to end. Yeah, it's worth taking down. That's dry as hell. I mean, it's not terrible, but they get pretty thin. Definitely dried out. Not the most marbled part of the rib. This is the part we're talking about. I would usually cut it off right about there. It's edible. You know, if you have zero plans to use your trim for anything else and you don't care about a little bit of dry meat, leave it on there. It's fine. But if you're going for perfection, that's kind of what this video is all about, right? And I think lastly, we got to talk about the final little rib, where I always talk about trimming off the little baby bones at the end. That's the little baby bone. It's so tiny. And the rest of this is just, I don't even think I need to eat this. It looks like pork jerky. Very just Not tender, definitely dried out, definitely burnt up. Looks greasy, but still, yeah, I'm not gonna try that. I can tell just by texture that that is not gonna be ideal, but you know what? Chop this up, throw it in your chili or your hash or something like that, be good to go. Second bone in, yeah, it also just feels incredibly dry. It's just so small and thin, you know? Like this first little bit right down by the bone is pretty juicy, but as soon as you get past the bone itself, which again, tiny, super dry. So I'd say the first 2 ribs minimum you should take off the end, because this third one is looking a bit more juicy. But now for my favorite rib, it's like the second bone in, nice and tender, nice and juicy. Perfect clean bite every time, right down to the bone. That's solid. So, final thoughts on this untrimmed rack of spare ribs is, first and foremost, moving forward, the first cut I always make is removing that breastbone, this big straight top bone at the top of the rack. I think it connects to the sternum or something like that. And I'm just not a big fan of this, you know? It's not a rib, it's not the same type of meat, it didn't cook up very well, and by leaving this on, we didn't get any smoke or seasoning on the ends of these otherwise perfect, nice fatty ribs that you see on the thicker end of the rib cage. So I'm gonna keep doing with this what I've always done, what we used to do at the restaurants, is take this off as my first cut, separate all this meat off the bone, throw the bone into the stock pile, save that meat for the sausage pile. Or if you're not in the sausage making world, I would still take it off and you can just smoke it off by itself for a little pitmaster snack or feed it to the dog or something like that. Second cut I always make on a rack of spare ribs is that skirt meat on the back. And that one actually surprised me a little bit because that meat was tender and it was super tasty. I mean, that meat has always been good. It makes for some great pork fajitas or smoke it off for a snack halfway through the cook. Or again, great for the sausage pile. So I think moving forward, if I see that on a rack of ribs, I'm not going to judge that place nearly as harshly as I have in the past. But I think there is a limit because this one is pretty small and pretty juicy. But again, I've seen them where they're a lot bigger and a lot flappier. And at that point, you're just not getting rub on the membrane side. And it might affect your cook because it's going to burn up and dry out. So use your best discretion on that. Third cut I always make is removing the 2 or 3 tiniest bones on the other end of the rack of ribs over here. And that I'm definitely going to continue to do. And there's really not much you can do with that because it's got the bones and some cartilage in there. But it made for some terrible ribs and just some really dry meat that I wouldn't want to serve to anybody, and I don't really want to eat myself, so that one's probably going to the dog or into the bin. And then the final cut I always do is the shaping of the rib, you know, taking down the rib tip side a little bit. And I think I'm going to continue to do that because as we talked about earlier, that top maybe ½ inch or so definitely dried out because it was really thin. And you know, it was a little crunchy and a little dried out on an otherwise perfectly cooked rack of ribs, so I don't think there's any saving it if it is that thin. However, I think I have been being a bit aggressive in the past because I'll usually take it down like an inch or 2, depending on the size of the rack, but I think you really just need to take it down until it's a uniform thickness across the board. So getting some bigger ribs, not quite this big, but maybe like to there, is probably going to be the move going forward. But all in all, I'm glad I did this. You know, I've never cooked a rib quite that long before. It was an interesting cook. I definitely learned some things, confirmed some suspicions, proved a few points, and also learned some things I might change up moving forward. But with this very last bite of pork spare rib, I think it's time for the official taste test. What'd you think? Any notes? More? All right, y'all, and that is it. That is how to cook a whole rack of spare ribs. And honestly, I'm surprised it took me this long to do this. And truth be told, it never really crossed my mind, which is weird because when I first moved here back in 2012, one of the first restaurants I worked at, this is how they cooked ribs, right? I remember watching the guy try to twist the bone out, and it's just a real old school kind of rustic way of doing things. But moving forward, is this really going to change how I trim things? Really not all that much, but really it just depends on your circumstance. Where for me, I'm always kind of going for that craft barbecue route where I want it to look really pretty on a tray or on camera. But you know, if you're just trying to put food on the table, this is a really great way to do that because if you break it down like we were talking about, where you got the St. Louis cut, plus all the rib tips, plus that big breastbone for someone to gnaw on, you could feed like 5 or 6 people with all that meat for like 13 bucks. Real cheap piece of meat. And that's why we always get the full spare anyway, right? As opposed to the St. Louis cut because it's so much cheaper per pound because there's no butchery involved. But all in all, super fun experiment. Probably something I'll be doing again. And either way, there were some very tasty ribs. But all that being said, if you enjoyed this video, let me know by hitting that subscribe button. Let YouTube know by dropping a like on this video. If you give this recipe a try for yourself, be sure to tag me on Instagram at Chuds BBQ. I'd love to see what y'all are cooking. Big shout out to all the Team Chud members. Thank you for supporting this channel and allowing me to keep making all of these videos. And until the next time I see you, please go cook something outside. Peace.